It's Thursday again, tell everybody to lock in, grab some popcorn, a drink, and go and throw your AirPods in. It's the 1 hour show, constantly speaking facts. Bulletproof stats are always shooting from Matt. And when it comes to Kyle, you getting numbers and style. Jake is gonna educate you, he has that knowledge on file. Players, step your game up, don't be sluggish or lazy. Or Jimmy J might hit you with a shaky baby. Catch him on YouTube or any podcast platform. Breaking all the news down like Shaq does the backboards. No hot takes, this is where the hottest debate's at. Now kick your feet up, cause it's time for straight facts.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains, brought to you by the Up On Game Presents networks. Make sure you're going and getting them wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We're everywhere. They're everywhere to do it. They do a great job over there at Up On Game Presents. But it's the usual suspects, your boy James Jackson, Jimmy J, with my guys Jake Galley and Stat Matt Robinson. Guys, there's only one team that we all root for, and it's the Phillies. I am looking like Boo Boo the Fool because I have all my Phillies gear on. It's opening day. I'm all hype. And what do? Blow a 5-run lead and virtually one inning to the Texas Rangers and lose, final score 11-7 or something like that. Yep. So not the opening day we were all hoping for after a magical Cinderella ride to the World Series. But how are you guys doing after that? Did you guys get to watch the game? Where were you for it?
I was at work. You have to remember, I was tracking the game at work, and I was looking at why would you put I was looking at the bullpen decisions, and oh wait, no, this isn't the World Series. It's it's okay. It can lose game one, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, there were just
it does stink when you hit DeGrom and you lose.
Uh-huh.
And I really have problems with Aaron Nola. I think he's so overrated. Tough, I think man. He basically gets treated like he gets treated like Cole Hamels should have been treated, because I always thought Cole Hamels got disrespected, and he won us the World Series, and Aaron Nola really played poorly in the NLCS in the World Series, and he's treated like he's the best pitcher on the team when it's
he's one of those prodigal sons, one of those people that Philadelphia has decided that they are investing in until it absolutely is not working out.
He's good, but he's not great.
It's not a Markelle Fultz situation where it's that bad, but it's the same feeling where Philadelphia is we've decided hey man, we are invested in him, so we're gonna see it through. That's where Aaron Nola is, and today was you could see that man run out of gas quick, and in the fourth inning, it's just not ideal.
To defend him, I do feel that some of the favoritism. I think he's a good pitcher. I mean, some of the favoritism comes from him being a homegrown prospect.
But so was Cole Hamels, and that's
right. And so was Utley and Rollins and Howard and all the people who are beloved.
When Hamels had the bad 09 postseason, the fan base turned against him, and he never got it fully back.
And I'm not sure the fan base is on Aaron Nola's side. I may be one of the few who
I just don't get why Wheeler isn't the certified ace,
because I think I think there goes all of his confidence. I think they're trying.
And he's not a big game pitcher then.
Well, Matt, we're trying to get him there. We're trying to get him back there. That's the whole point, man. I have an Aaron. You mean that's my guy? I the prodigal son, longest tenured Philly. He'll get it together. But we're not actually here, despite the first 3 minutes of the pod, to talk about the MLB. We are here to talk about the NBA as it's getting close to playoff time. Playoffs are literally right around the corner, next weekend or the week after sometime they start. So this is the perfect time for us to kind of go down both conferences and evaluate, see where the strengths and weaknesses are of the top playoff teams. We'll leave out the playing teams, one, for time, because we'd be here forever talking about 10 different teams. And two, because that's where it gets really messy, and those teams are going to duke it out to see who gets that A spot to go into the playoffs. So we'll focus on the Eastern Conference today and the top 8 teams and talk about not only their strengths and weaknesses, but then we'll give a team MVP for each, team. And we might even go past the obvious ones, because we know there's, the Giannis's and the Embiids of the world. But we'll start in the East with the Milwaukee Bucks, the number 1 seed, 55-21. They are. I mean, they're this year, top to bottom, at the very least, the last month of the season, absolutely month and a half, 2 months, have been the best team in the NBA, right? The last 30, 35 games of the season have been on a run that we've seen, not very often, has been precedent in NBA history. So Matt or Jay, whoever wants to start, you guys can start talking about the strengths. But I believe right now the Milwaukee Bucks are the best team in the NBA. They're playing like it, and that's I'm not seeing really.
They're the staple of the NBA. They've been since 2018-19 season. They're by far the most successful and best team in basketball. They have a title. They have the most wins over that time, and they have the best player over that time. And last year, they lose a really tough 7-game series to Boston without Chris Middleton. They win the title the year before. They are the 1 seed the 2 years before that. And it was all about getting over the hump for them. They got over the hump. Last year, they lost because of injuries, and Boston played really well. And if they're healthy with Drew Holiday playing like this, and Giannis is just kind of phoning in the season and is still out of this world, they're absolutely the favorite in the NBA.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if you guys saw the performance last night as of this recording. Drew Holiday and Giannis combined for 89, 25, and 20.
Drew Holiday will be part of my at the buzzer sneak peek.
I was about to say he weaves into some of the discussions we were having before the show, but I think this is the team that, aside from Golden State, is the closest thing to a dynasty that we see right now in the NBA. Like, if they win another title with the same core, you have to start kind of considering, okay, well, how really historically great could this team be together? Because they have the continuity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the team that has been battling through the past couple postseasons, or the core, at least. And they actually have the second longest active playoff streak. Tons of continuity compared to their competition. You'd probably say Boston is somewhat similar, but they lost their head coach. So, and we'll talk about them. Also, one
Twice
thing,
they went from Stevens to
how about
year over year.
How about that? Yeah.
One hot take, which I think this is the correct take here. They're the only team in the East with 3 stars, or they have the best 3 stars in the Eastern Conference. I couldn't think of.
Interesting. Show your work. Interesting.
So basically, you have Harden and Embiid, who are the best duo. Then you have Maxey. I would put Chris Middleton in a playoff series. I would probably still take him over Maxey. I'd probably still take.
So you're going off Chris Middleton's cachet then, because this year you can't call Chris Middleton a star.
No, he's had a hurt year. He's been ramping back up, but I just mean, I guess, yeah, right. Off of their resume, basically what we think of them as a player, because both of those guys can guard and score against basically anyone in the NBA. So vital. So then the only other people I would put up there, the third guy on Cleveland is Darius Garland. I don't even know who you would. I guess you consider the first 2, D. Mitch and Mobley. Tyler Herro in Miami. So,
the run you're really debating about is Tyrese Maxey then. You're not calling Tyrese Maxey a star yet.
I just, not even that. It's not that I...
established. I
guess it is kind of...
Middleton is at
that's what you're saying. It was
like 40, huge 40-point games in the finals. Like that finals run solidified that trio. And I think we always talk about how in the playoffs defense is so important. Mm-hmm. The Warriors were the best defense in basketball last year. The biggest plays of the 2021 NBA Finals were the Giannis block and the Holiday steal. And the fact that you have arguably the best perimeter and interior defenders in the league on the same team, and they're both huge pluses offensively, is so valuable. Yeah. And the fact that Drew Holiday is doing this at like 32, 33, however old he is, like he is making like a late, low-key Hall of Fame push. And it's really impressive. Like I don't see how they can obviously lose. They're not an unbeatable team, but they're there's no way to argue that they're not the favorite, in my opinion.
Well, what I saw the Bucks do in the middle of the season is as the Celtics were, and we can kind of probably like lean this into this, the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, which is the Boston Celtics. But when I saw the Celtics start to reel and kind of slide, down the Eastern Conference, I saw the Bucks start to do exactly what the Celtics were doing, what everyone liked so much about the Celtics, what got them the number 1 seed. Having so much emphasis on the defensive side of the ball, their stars being the catalyst for that two-way style of basketball. Like the Celtics stars were committing to both ends of the floor, and the Bucks stars have always committed to both ends of the floor, but we're shining on both ends of the floor. You got solid production from your big man and your interiors from Brook Lopez, as the Celtics did from Robert Williams. Your guys outside were hitting shots. Grant Williams and Derek White were hitting big shots last year for the Celtics. Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton hitting big shots. And really, the emergence of Grayson Allen in that offense to be there to hit those timely kick-out shots from Jrue Holiday, from Giannis, and from the drivers. He's really kind of like rebranded himself in the NBA as this really nice, spot-up kick-out three-point shooter that can be relied on, and that can also give you a 20, 25-point night here and there when it calls for it, when someone else isn't coming to the billing. So this complete style, this complete team basketball that they've been playing. And last year, as Matt, as you said, I think they battled the injuries, but this year it's not like they got that much healthier. Like Chris Middleton has been out all year. I just think they've figured out a way to kind of fill that void with what they've always done, the strength in numbers, multiple bodies type thing. And now you go get Jay Crowder added into that mix too. Another guy who has champion, finals experience, a guy who's been in many deep playoff runs. So they're just all around, just the best team in the NBA. And Matt, you say Giannis is phoning in like the season, but like magically finds himself stamped at 3rd in the MVP voting. And there's some people out there who like want to make the case for him, like pushing either close to or past Jokic or Embiid, whichever one, for that second place. And personally, in my mind, it may have changed since we had this conversation. You guys remember last week with Josh Reynolds, when we had him on the show last week, I said Giannis was second in that MVP race over Jokic. It might have changed in a week. That list is very fluid, but I don't know. If he's phoning in the season, I hate to see what happens when he dialed in all year.
No, when he's dialed in, he's and phoning in for Giannis is like 85%. Like he's not he's not going like full like end of career LeBron where like he doesn't try on defense until the playoffs. But he's definitely not. He takes plays off from time to time. His block and steal numbers are down. And the Bucks' defensive numbers are not as good as they have been in the past.
Okay, we'll keep talking about that. We'll go because we got to hit on their weaknesses for.
Their weaknesses are the fact that I really think the Sixers are the team that's built to beat them, because the only way to counter Giannis is to have Embiid, and the only way to counter Jrue Holiday is to have Harden.
That's their weakness, is the Sixers is their kryptonite.
No, Sixers have played well against Milwaukee over the past 3-4 years. I'm gonna look kind of silly with Boston blowing out the Bucks as we speak right now. It's 75-47 at halftime.
Nice. But
the Bucks don't really. I don't think the Bucks are really that keyed in on this game. The Celtics have kind of been a little slow over the past, losing the 1 seed. They've kind of fallen off recently. The Bucks want the Celtics in the conference finals. They don't want the Sixers. And the Sixers would prefer the Bucks in the second round over Boston. It's like a rock paper scissors matchup.
Well, the only thing I understand is that the Bucks aren't showing many weaknesses. Last year they showed more weaknesses. Last year, to me,
the weakness is Middleton going to turn up for the playoffs?
There's really the biggest.
That's the weakness,
right? Yeah. I think the thing that we as a show picked out and that we saw, the biggest trend that we could see is Giannis's 3-point shooting is down, and that was, to me, that's something that can only help the Bucks, that can't hurt them. Like,
Wow.
if Giannis, I don't think that can.
Dude, you forget how quickly
they won the
forget.
title 2 years ago, and he wasn't shooting threes like that.
He was shooting threes better than he is now, and he was shooting them more often. So here, like, remember, before they went on the finals run, like, it was build the wall, and Giannis is standing there on the 3-point line shooting bricks. Right. So not to say that's going to happen, and honestly, their team is good enough now around him that even if that does happen, you really can't do that to an effect, especially if Brook Lopez is playing well. But we'll see. I mean, it is scary. To me, they're the favorite. They should. But
we also had a pod that year, and Kyle and I were the only ones. Shout out Kyle. We were the only ones who were there. It was in the summer. Everyone else was on vacation, and it was right before the finals. And we had a stat that the Bucks had led the NBA in 2-point field goals made per game. And I said at that time, I'll never forget it, if there was a team who can win the finals primarily shooting 2-point baskets over 3-point baskets, it's the Bucks because of who their star is. And they went on to obliterate my Suns in the finals, shooting mostly 2-point baskets. So
I don't know if I'd say obliterate. That was close to a set.
It felt like the
last four. When you go up 2-0 and lose 4 in a row,
the last two at the very least were an obliteration.
If we're talking about 3-point owners with the Bucks, they lost to Boston because of their poor 3-point shooting. They shot as a team 27.9% from 3. Drew Holiday shot 30% from 3 of that series. Connaughton was the only one who was above league average that played actual minutes, like George Hill played. I one of 2 that doesn't count. So it's getting Holiday to play like he's been playing this regular season, having Middleton on the floor, and having Grayson Allen play like he has been this year instead of how he played in the postseason last year.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was about to say. Their moves indicate that they understood that. Going to getting Grayson Allen, for what it's worth, Jake Crowder is a reliable 3-point shooter, and he knows when to take them and in the spot. So it is good. All right, we do have to move on. We spent a lot of time on the Bucks. We might not be able to spend as much time on the rest of these top teams, but the number 2 seed is the Boston Celtics.
No, we don't have to. We can just move. No,
we can move right on, right? We can move right on. Well, I mean, for what it's worth, man, 2 months ago, this team had a much different vibe and a much different aura around them. They've kind of fallen back down to earth to the rest of us kind of fighting in the playoff season. 52-24 right now. Their biggest strength, that it's going to be always their strength, is their defense, man. 3rd in the league in defensive rating, but more importantly are 3 deep at every position. You talk about guard, forward, and center when healthy. Is a team that goes extremely deep in each and every one of their players that sees action, is very reliable on both ends of the floor. But I will say their biggest strength can be their biggest weakness if it's not performing right, because last year they were the number 1 defense in the league, combined with, at some points, the number 1 offense in the league. So the regression, although they're 3rd, they're still upper echelon, top tier. We're seeing that regression manifest itself kind of in their play, because this is a team that gets their energy on the defensive end. If it's not working on the defensive end, their offense isn't working. Their stars aren't getting to where they need to. It's not opening up the floor for them. So I think we've seen the Celtics, like I said, a month ago, they were the best team in the NBA. 2 months ago, the best team in the NBA. Now, they're in the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference.
I mean, those guys are still on the team. They're just playing differently, right? I mean, it's still in them. And I mean, as both an objective observer and a non-objective observer, Sixers fan,
never will be an objective observer.
This team still does scare me to some degree because of the depth of our stars just played, your stars just played their full first run through. Okay, we go to the bench. Not that any other team does what the Sixers do, where they send their entire lineup to the bench, but we'll go to the bench. And now my backups are going up against guys who should be starters on other teams. And that is where the major edge for Boston is. But as we saw in their finals run, when they run into another team that is similarly built, which there are many, the Suns this year, in my opinion, being one of them, they then suffer from too many cooks in the kitchen sometimes. Or, as we saw in the finals, Jason Tatum having to be this, floor general, which he's improving in that aspect, but he's not, take your pick of the top guards. He's not, I don't think, cerebral enough of a facilitator to rely on him for an entire playoff series.
Yeah.
That's how I see Boston.
Matt,
for me, their depth is obviously their greatest strength. Marcus Smart, he's like it gets really annoying. Like the announcer's like favorite player kind of guy, and you get annoyed. Like, look at all the little things he's doing. But with Marcus Smart, it's true. He does all those tiny little things, those 50-50 balls, he'll be 0 of 15 from 3 in games 1 through 3 of the series, and then go 4 for 4 from 3.
Or just hit one big one, or just hit one big one.
Yeah. Like, because he has no fear, and that's like a small weakness with Smart too, because he makes some, because he has no fear. He sometimes he almost cost him Game 7 against Miami last year. But that Marcus Smart intangible, like, he is loved by Boston fans for good reason. If he was a Sixer, we would see Marcus Smart jerseys everywhere because of how he plays, the toughness, the trash talk, and the tiny ego of knowing his role in the offense. And that coupled with Tatum and Brown, and I know Brown's been weird with like some of the comments he's said about like potentially leaving, but it's not showing on the floor because Brown's playing arguably efficiency-wise a better season than Tatum is. Tatum, other than like he's struggling from 3 this year, his worst 3-point shooting year, I think, of his career. And over the past like 20 games, he's at 31%. But he can get a little shot happy from time to time. But overall, they terrify me in the playoffs as a Sixers fan because they could sweep us and win every game by 1 point. That's what it feels like when we play them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think their team's biggest strength is, or Marcus Smart's biggest strength is a microcosm of their team's biggest strength. I think the Celtics' ability to play like complete basketball as a team, I think, is what wins them games. And it's why, Matt, it leads to you saying they could win every game by 1 because they're a team that can scrape together any kind of win.
That's how they beat the Nets in the playoffs last year.
Truly, it can be a night where Tatum and Brown both give you 40 and they win 120 to 115, or it can be a night where Tatum and Brown don't even get 20, but they hold you to 92 points and they score 95.
The fact that
they can do that on a consistent basis.
The fact that Embiid played lights out and Tatum played horrible, and then Tatum hits the shot at the game winner at the end, just shows the talent depth gap between Boston and Philly.
Yeah.
And the Sixers have no shot of beating Boston in a game where Embiid stinks. There's no shot that happens.
True. Yes.
Boston can still win games when either Tatum or Brown is off.
Took the words right out of my mouth. And I think, Matt, they're the only team that can do it. And I won't say it on a consistent basis. I don't think any team can win if your stars are off on a consistent basis. They can do it more often than any team in the NBA. And to your point, I think most teams in the NBA are set up where they're not able to do that. Like if Steph is off, the Warriors are not winning. If LeBron and AD are off, the Lakers are not winning. Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson are off, the Knicks aren't winning. But if Boston, or if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are off, Boston, I can pull out like 9-10 games this year where that has happened and they've won because of other things the entire team.
We'll get to them, but I think Cleveland's kind of like a baby version of them.
Might be. But we also have to mention the overall growth of Jason Tatum, as we've done many times before on this podcast, but it's continued at, splits of 30 points, 8.9 rebounds, 4.7 assists on the season, as increases yearly points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game every year of his career. And I think it's creating more offense for the team as a whole. When Jason Tatum is attacking like that, and we talked about this last year in the finals with Martin Soares, right, where we thought Jason Tatum had to be more in attack mode on the offensive end, And then you can look to create, and that'll open up the offense more naturally. And you look, the team as a whole, the Celtics are shooting 14% more three-pointers this year and making 20% more threes this year than last year's Celtics. That's not a coincidence to me. Like, as Jason Tatum's offensive game grows, that's just going to open up more opportunities for guys to knock down shots. And you said it, Jake, this is the same team as last year. So Jason Tatum knows where they're going to be. Grant Williams, Derek White and company know how to get open, know how to find those shots, know how to make them. And they've been doing that exceptionally for most of the year. They've been struggling a little bit, but for the most part, they're still doing that as well as, if not better than, any team in the NBA. So we'll take a look at that. And then weaknesses. I mean, the only thing we have down here is experience for them, but that didn't seem to be a weakness for them last year when, first year head coach took them to the finals. So they might be able to do that again, but
the biggest weakness for me is that the Bucks in the series against the Bucks and the Sixers, which they're absolutely going to play in the playoffs, they don't have the best player. And most of the time, just in every NBA series, the team with the best player wins that series. Like, there's obviously
they've won a lot of series without having the best player. They beat the Nets when they didn't have the best player. They beat the Bucks when they didn't have the best player. Like, they've won a lot of series. And you're right. It's just, I think this just goes to the testament of how well they can win games, that they've won these series without having the best player in the series on their team. They've been able to overcome that. But, go ahead.
And just the fact that there's a little bit of an inverse of last year. Last year, they ended the season just piping hot, just out of because they were under 500 at like almost at the halfway part, and they lost like 4 games the rest of the year. And this year, like them, I wish they were worse than they were, but they're struggling is that they're 8-7 in their last 15, going to be 9-7 now that they're going to win tonight. But
yeah,
they're not going in as well tuned as they were last year.
Yeah, I think the from the sideline, and I'm not completely tapped into the Boston media and how the nuances to it, so I could be misreading things. But from the sideline, what I see is like the biggest weakness for them is things aren't defined. I think things are too much in flux, too much in fluid. That may have to do with the head coaching turnover. I'm sure that doesn't help when you have different voices in their back-to-back years with such a good team and such high stakes. But I think the reason there's such a weird vibe around like Jaylen Brown is because like for the past 2 or 3 years, like people have been debating like who's the go-to man, who's the number one. Everyone recognizes that Jason Tatum is the best overall player on the Celtics. But I think too many times when it gets down to it, there's not a definitive thought in our minds that Jason Tatum is the go-to guy over Jaylen Brown in crunch time. And that lends itself to Jaylen Brown thinking that I'm being undervalued here. Like Ime Udoka could have and this is all speculation, but Ime Udoka could have a different message in that locker room from Joe Mazzulla. Like it just could be different way. And I think that is, not having a consistency of way about things and the turnover like that affects like your way of being. And I think that's the only, it's a small weakness. It may not be something that derails them, but that is a weakness to me.
They've lost a lot of close games, especially recently. Lost by 2 to the Knicks, lost by 4 to Cleveland, lost by 2 to Houston, lost by 1 to Utah. A veteran coach knows how to draw up those end of game situations and knows how to make like that. I just remember watching the end of the Utah game. They drew up a play for Grant Williams. Like, what are you doing?
Well, and Matt, that is the tough part about being a coach in the NBA. Like, yeah, there's the right call that you could, draw up, or right play that you could call at that time. And then there's sometimes a play that you have to draw up to keep your locker room together for the next night and the one after and the one after. So that is the difficulty. And when we look at inexperience, like it's not just inexperience of like the X's and O's. Like you need to know what makes these players tick. That's why Phil Jackson, as a coach, had a ton of success because he truly understood, the internal and kind of soft skills you need to be a head coach. One other thing about the coaching inexperience, Damon Stoudemire was hired as Georgia Tech's head coach. From some articles I was reading, he did a lot of game planning and film stuff. So like, that's another thing is you get into these playoff series and
that
now
kind
you
of
have
stuff matters. That kind of
right.
stuff matters.
Either someone doesn't like, and you never know what goes on behind there. Either that work is passed off to someone else who still had their own work, or there's someone else that they're calling up that is now, again, going back to that word, inexperienced.
Yeah. And it's funny because when teams have these little slides, right, everyone asks like, what's going on with them? You know, what's wrong? No one's injured. Is everyone feeling okay? And maybe it's these kind of things. These are the kind of little unexplained things that were like, why are they 8-7 all of a sudden? Well, maybe because their assistant coach left and someone else left. So things are used to being run as a, well-oiled and smooth machine. Maybe there's a little, bumps in it now. So they're going to slide a little bit while they figure things out. They're not used to getting some information or doing this kind of drill, or they're getting this kind of workout that's been helping them. This kind of scheme, seeing it this kind of way, these kind of little things matter. So I'm glad you brought that up, Jay, because it might be true. We're going to move on to the third team in the Eastern Conference. And we really can't spend too much time on this team, y'all.
I know. I'll be good about this one. I'm wearing the shirt.
We really can't.
But I'll be good about this.
But the Philadelphia 76ers, 50-26, the third seed. Right now, I think they have their biggest strength. And when they're healthy, because the last, 3 to 5 games aren't the biggest indication of this. But I think their biggest strength is they have their two biggest stars are operating at the best this year in the NBA. And late push for Drew and Giannis to kind of contend for that belt. But for majority of the season, the best tandem in the NBA has been Joel Embiid and James Harden. I think that's that coming to fruition is Philadelphia's biggest strength. And that's, that momentum has been halted a little bit in the past week or so, but for the majority of the season, that's been there.
And their biggest strength to me has been the amount of times this season where they really play poorly in the first quarter, first half, and then they get it together in the second half and they wind up winning. It happened last night against Dallas. I was at the game. It was bizarre. Like, they weren't trying, really. And a lot of that was Embiid and Harden clearly weren't 100%.
Yeah.
And
obviously.
And then right when the third quarter hit, Harden gets a steal, gets a layup to Maxey, and we're turned on now. And in the fourth quarter, they dominate defensively, win. And the fact that they've been able to have that when in the past they lose those silly games, and it means something that they're going to have a higher win total this year, most likely, unless something really surprising happens, than they have in any Embiid year. They're going to most likely wind up with 53, 54 wins. They usually hover around the 50-51 mark. And it's because, other than the fact that Embiid's missed some time and Harden's missed some time, Harden's been way better than he was last year, and Maxey's emergence. But the weaknesses, I'll get to that. I'll let everyone else chime in.
Yeah, I'll go one further. Not only do they have the best duo in the NBA, which I think they do, they have the best player in the NBA. Make no qualms about it. They have the best player in the NBA. If you can, point me towards someone who can stop him, we could have a conversation. But he's the all-time leader in points per minute. I mean, he's also an all-world defender. Put that on top. He's getting better as a passer. This is the year where everyone feels they have a vested interest in. I mean, obviously, you always want to win, but it's almost freeing knowing that if they lose here in the second round, everyone moves on. You move on. You don't have to deal with worrying about Toby's probably gone. Doc is probably gone if they don't get out of the second round.
Doc's seat's so hot right now he can't sit down.
Harden could be gone. Toby probably will be gone. I actually don't know. I would have to take a look at his contract. I think.
Is it expiring? Next year is his last year, so it's expiring. So you can move it.
Right, you can move it. And then maybe even, I'm probably not Morey, but maybe even Morey, if this really goes south.
He might go. If everybody go, he might go.
But that's almost freeing. It's motivating and freeing compared to past Sixers years where it's they have so much promise. They have to live up to this promise. they have a bunch of guys who this has been their whole career has been getting disappointed.
I'm glad you see it that way because I feel like that does alleviate the pressure, but I feel like most Sixers fans are seeing it glass half empty as like we got one last year, everyone's gonna leave, we got to get it done now.
What will be will be.
You're surprisingly
in the NBA,
easy about it.
Well,
you know why the cage bird sings?
I don't know. Don't know what that means.
It's the truth. There's cage bird knows it can't go anywhere. It has no control over its outcome. So it's a freeing feeling of like I don't have to worry about the consequence of things because I know I'm not. I can't control that.
That was deep. That was very well said. Well said.
I know. Let me just go ahead and enjoy it.
The thing is, I don't sing because I had a really frightening realization when the Cowboys lost that oh my gosh, the Sixers are the Dak Cowboys, and I can't handle.
We don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
I can't handle that. I need them to get past the second round desperately, and I don't think it's a blow up. I think it's like take a big hatchet, but it's not like a atom bomb.
I think a lot looks different. But speaking of
weaknesses is that they can't beat Boston in Boston.
I was just about to say, speaking of the ineptitude that you're talking about that has hurt you in the past, we have in the script here that their biggest weakness is Doc Rivers in the postseason. And that sounds like trauma talking.
We're Harden, but Doc is probably
much more of a liability than Harden. Harden got one real bad moment.
I was stunned.
Got a couple.
I was really stunned. I saw this from a Kevin O'Connor tweet from a couple of years ago. Doc has coached 6 teams that have blown a 3-1 or 3-2.
Yeah, like what?
Series lead. 3-2 is a little bit more excusable depending on the circumstance.
Yeah, you gotta close out though.
But yeah, I mean, and I had to look back. I was like, the tweet was in 2020. I'm like, has Doc let up one since then?
No, we were down 3-2.
Yeah, no, he's just gotten, the barn doors blown off. Much better.
Blowing that Game 5 lead to Atlanta counts. I'm sorry, just add it to the list.
I don't want to think about Atlanta.
But like against Boston, who's going to be the second round matchup, the Sixers are 7-5 at home against Boston, and 4-15 away from home. So that's 4-10 in Boston, and then 0-5 in the bubble / London. Yeah, a London game.
Not much random, but not many teams are good playing in TD Garden. Not many opposing teams are good playing in TD Garden. You are so definitely not one of them. I think your other biggest weakness is I think Sixers fans would scream it at the center position, the lack of depth, but all over the board. Like the depth isn't great, for the Sixers. It's been the Achilles heel in many years in the past, not having great bench scoring. But you have guys that come off the bench and have played good as of late, put in their roles. George Niang has hit shots. You get, D'Anthony Melton has done his thing all season long. Shake Milton's given it good minutes and come off the bench. Maxey was 6 man for a month and it was playing out his mind. But as a whole, you don't really get all, that crazy production. The only non-starter you have that has an on-off offensive rating split or a positive, on-off offensive rating split is Jalen McDaniels at +10 off the bench. So you need much better production from your other guys, from your non-starters than you're getting from that. Or what that lends itself to is you relying yourself on Doc Rivers more to stagger the starters. And now we're putting more eggs in Doc Rivers' basket. And who in Philadelphia wants that?
Well, I just want to counter that a little bit. Since the All-Star break, Paul Reed has been much better.
Very true.
Paul
Reed is like Miles Sanders to y'all. He does well, but you don't give him you don't get tick. You don't give him the rock.
Well, and not only I'm the very, very, and I think he should get more playing time than
you're not for the
never play Dedmon over him.
But, right, never. Dedmon shouldn't be on the team, in my opinion. But like he still does. Like even if you put him in there, and it's like, a matchup like Bobby Portis or Julius Randle over a couple games in the playoffs for extended minutes, like that He has stretches where he's a good defender, and he has stretches where he will foul the living heck out of someone and put you in a terrible spot. So I can't trust him, and it's unfortunate. I
wouldn't want him.
His promise.
The Julius Randles of the world, the Jericho Sims of the world, the backups is where I want Paul Reed again.
Oh yeah, he'll crush those guys. Right,
he's a lot better than he was last year.
Yeah, and he has.
And last year it was an absolute liability when he had to play.
He locked up. Well, I say locked up, but he had a couple consecutive great defensive possessions against Kyrie Irving on perimeter defense. Like
Kyrie hit some impossible shots over Paul Reed. So and I know which one you're talking about. The one fading left, the leaner on the left. Yeah. And classic Paul Reed right there. You can't play better defense than that. It's just, Kyrie Irving is Kyrie Irving, all world finisher. All right, so those are the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. Everyone knows about them, the big bad boys of the Eastern Conference. But I did want to spend time talking about these 4 through 6 teams too, because they're interesting. It's not as bunched up as the Western Conference. Everyone is pretty much like solidified in their spots, right? The last team, that 6th team, is the one who's kind of fighting for position the most, and we'll talk about them. But these 4 and 5 teams are not. The 4th team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, 48-29, right now, are pretty much kind of locked into that 4 seed, and will play the 5th seed New York Knicks, who we'll talk about next. But the strengths for the Cavs, like the Cavs have probably the most nuance to them of any team in the NBA. Like, you can really break down the Cavs and dissect them a lot into what they do, and they're such a fun team. It's such an interesting team right now. But the fact that they utilize their size and like switchability so well is something that is, excuse me, my mic, something that is to be taken note. Like, they do at the big man position what like the Wolves thought they could do or hoped they could do, and operate with those 2 big men, those 2 7-footers. But the Cavs do it in a way that it complements each other. Mobley and Allen are arguably the best center power forward duo in the East right now, and there's the reason why, probably one of the biggest reasons why the Cavs.
You have to put an asterisk because it's Giannis and Lopez, but.
True.
I guess it's true.
Yeah, you do. You have to get
missed that in my accounting there on the.
Good catch there, Matt. But are one of the best center power forward duos in the East, and are the reason why one of the biggest reasons why the Cavs have the number 1 defensive rating in the Eastern Conference right now. So we talked about when Donovan Mitchell first went to the Cavs, that Donovan Mitchell benefited from the Cavs the most because they play team defense, not just relying on Rudy Gobert, who he was just dependent on in the past in previous years. But team defense, and we're still seeing it right now. It's why the Cavs still remain among the top half of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and Evan Mobley, I know he's a young guy, 2nd year in the league. You bring up Minnesota. Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, maybe individually, are better than Allen or than Mobley, either one of them.
Rudy Gobert is not.
But together, you can't stick Cat and Gobert together because Karl Anthony Towns plays no defense and Gobert plays no offense. It is hell. So the great thing about Mobley is he really can do anything you need him to do. Even if it's on offense, take the ball one-on-one, post up, face up, he can do it. He can knock down a 3. He can move the ball. He can dribble. On defense, you need him to be the 4 and a guy who gets out to stretch on the perimeter, cover some of the wings. Okay, great. He could do that. Oh, Allen needs to sit. He can play the 5. If he was 3 inches taller, we would call him Victor Wembanyama. So I don't want, and granted, he still has some holes in his game. I think that when he goes up against bigger guys, Giannis, Embiid, he's not there yet. But he has the tools, and we've spent all this time talking about the front court. The Cavs' backcourt's equally as impressive, and more so impressive.
You got 2 All-Stars back there. Yeah, you got 2 All-Stars in the backcourt.
I think I just wanted to make the point about Mobley. 18.8, 9.4 rebounds, 3.3 assists per game on 60.6 true shooting since the All-Star break. So he's ramping up. And I think he is a reason. Granted, they couldn't do it without Donovan Mitchell, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But he is having a great year, and just wanted to make note of him.
the Cavs are like they're the baby Celtics in the sense that the Celtics have been this team for about 6 years now, so since Tatum got drafted, and this incredibly deep team with stars up top, and the Cavs star is Donovan Mitchell, and then their second star is kind of harder to figure out, but that's actually better for most teams chemistry-wise, so I think it lends itself to them perfectly. But the amount of depth they have, you can just switch. Like, the fact that Karis LeVert is, like, their fifth best player. Cedi Osman is, like I remember being like...
I cannot believe he's still on that team.
The fact that he is, like, a decent player is, like, shocking.
The one young player to survive LeBron's GMship.
Yeah, he should get a documentary.
It's... Jared Allen, it's their depth is so good. It's just their issue is that they have the Boston issue where they won't have the best player in any series, but their issue is that includes Boston. For them, so they're just low. But I really think they're a victim of being in the wrong conference, because I'd pick them to make the conference finals in the West, if they were in the West right now, but. I think
Jazz on
when we get to I think the Cavs are much closer to the Bucks, Sixers, and Celtics than they are to the Knicks and Nets, as in, like, contender wise. Like, there's a scenario where the Cavs make the finals. It's really unlikely, but I think there is one. There's no scenario where the Knicks or the Nets make the finals.
I think I can. Here's what I'll say. There's a shot that they could win 2 series. I think. I'm not going to say they could win the finals.
Win a third.
I'm not even going to say they could make the finals. But I don't think any. I would agree with you. The Knicks or the Nets.
They have the most. Yeah. I guess I hear what you're saying. It's fathomable that they do. Like, believable if they did. So I guess by that saying that, they got a shot. One, shout out JB Bickerstaff. Shout out to the fact he's trying to. I feel like JB is another one of those project coaches in the NBA. Nate McMillan fits that mold. Not really Jason Kidd, but maybe Jason Kidd to a sense. But they get sent to the projects. They get sent to the. We need a team to David Fizdale was that for a little bit. We need a team to get fixed up. Who's a coach that hasn't gotten a job in a couple of years? Give it to him. He'll fix them up. And then when they're good enough to ascend, we get them a different coach. But it's a whole different discussion. I think what the Cavs have going for them that the teams above them don't, and is that their ceiling is untapped. And it might not be higher than the Sixers, Celtics, or Bucks, but we don't know that for sure yet because we haven't seen it in the playoffs. We have this team that we were so excited about last year, and we were like, man, if we could just equip them with a superstar, I really wonder what this team could do. And then in the summer, what happened? They got equipped with said superstar, with that guy who was dropping 40 points and 50 points in the playoffs, but had no one else around him to help him do anything else, so it wasn't yielding to wins. Now, he's got a team to help him literally do everything else around him, and then some. Help them score too. So I think that's the thing that the Cavs, that's their biggest strength right now, is that and I don't even know how tangible that is. You can't quantify that. I don't have a stat for it. But their potential is untapped. Their potential is unknown. What they could be, their best, ball in the playoffs has yet to be seen. And I'm not sure if I really would relish in running into that. Like, they're going to run into the 4 seed now, so they'll run into Milwaukee in the second round. Or they'll run into Milwaukee in the second round. Like, I'm sure Milwaukee's not quivering at it. I'm sure Milwaukee's like, that's a series that we should win. For him. But it's a bad, what I mean? I wouldn't relish in the fact that we get to play the Cavs in the second round. I wouldn't love it last year.
Yeah.
Tell you the truth.
I mean,
and now I got Donovan Mitchell to deal with too. I really don't like it. If I got to deal with it.
Surprisingly, this year they're 3-1 against Boston, 2-2 against Milwaukee, and 1-2 against the Sixers. So
they are a team who plays to their competition.
They're going to be competitive. Donovan Mitchell scored
they got gamed by DeJounte Murray the other night, right, in Atlanta. So they're definitely a team who plays to their competition. Oh, I'm sorry, Jake. I thought
they are second in the NBA in point differential, so they are blowing out a good amount of people. They have the 5th best record in the NBA, but they're second in point differential, so that is something.
I don't
know if they're 5th, actually. I think Memphis might have a better record than them, but they're like 6th at worst.
Yeah, the weakness is, it's, you know, kind of what we talked about Boston, the coaching. I think this is the team where, you know, even they got, you know, maybe even less experience than the team under them. In terms of deep playoff experience. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's, you know, the one who has the most. And if you want to count what he did with the Jazz as quote unquote deep playoff experience, then that's. I mean,
he lost in the second round a bunch like the Sixers. That's what he did.
Yeah.
Is that deep playoff experience?
That's a lot of playoff.
That's a lot of playoff experience, right?
No, but he's
been
in
quantity over quality, right there.
He's been in the crucible where he is the guy at the controls. Like, if you don't go for 40, your team loses
in the second round. That's not deep to me.
There are teams. I mean, I hear you. I think it depends on your matchup, though. Like there are years where
they were the 1 seed.
I mean, remember,
but they didn't get past the second.
I know.
Golden State and Houston played in the second round, did they not, one year?
Jake, your team hasn't.
Yeah, but they never. I don't remember Utah ever losing to like the team that won the finals. Like they lost to like the Clippers without Kawhi. Yeah. Like that was rough.
That is tough.
Tough. That all to be said, playoff experience is their weakness. We can't. And they only got Kevin Love. At least last year they had Kevin Love. We're like, they got someone who's been there. Like, we got Kevin Love anymore. Truly don't have anyone on this roster who really been. They may have a vet buried deep in that roster somewhere. Do they? I don't think
Ricky Rubio somewhere kicking around.
No. Danny Green did go back home.
For that reason.
There we go. There's the there's the fact.
Cedi Osman made the finals.
Danny Green a champion multiple times. You know what I mean?
No. Cedi Osman was a rookie on the 18 team.
Yeah, it's okay. Cedi Osman was getting burped when LeBron came off the wing. when LeBron came off the floor. Yeah. But no, the Cavs, exciting team, not a lot of experience. We will see what happens when they get in the postseason. Number 5, man, the grittiest team in the NBA to me this season, the New York Knicks, a 43-33 team. And if I would have told a New York Knicks fan that you're going to be 43-33 with 5-6 games left in the NBA season in September, they would have laughed, said bing bong and probably stomped me out with their Timbs, right? Like they would not have believed this because they've gotten great production. And their strength has got to be their grittiness and their fight. Like on a night-to-night basis, they will like compete. It's the Tom Thibs culture. That is their biggest strength right now. And they've not only believed in that, but they've gone out and gotten guys who practice what Tom Thibodeau preaches. You make the trade for Jalen Brunson, or you make the sign for Jalen Brunson in the offseason. You trade for Josh Hart at the trade deadline. You even draft guys like Miles McBride and Quentin Grimes and Emmanuel Quickly, who like excel in doing the extra things and playing with extreme amounts of effort. Like that's what the Knicks are bringing, and I think it's lending himself. 3rd best in defensive field goal percentage and most steals per game in the NBA. They're gonna get after it, man, on a possession-to-possession basis. And who knows where they'd be if they didn't play like that, but playing like that is the reason that they're going to sit comfortably in that 5 seed and, play the Cavs in the first round of the playoffs.
I don't know what to make of the Knicks.
I do.
They're not stable.
No, it's really simple. They're exactly what they were 2 years ago. They're like a team that the New York media loves.
This team wouldn't get beat by the Hawks in the second round. This team wouldn't get beat by the Hawks in the second round.
They lost in the first round.
Tough, they did. This team wouldn't get beat by the Hawks.
That Hawks team made the conference finals. Let's not talk about how they
get beat by the Hawks in the first round. Put it that way.
I mean, here's what I'll say.
Just like your team wouldn't get beat by the Hawks in the second round. That Hawks team.
I think this is a year where we start to view Jalen Brunson. It's already been. This is no new news.
Everybody, while Jake speaks, because he's about to preach. Go ahead.
But
Jake.
Yeah, this is probably the year where we're going to acknowledge Jalen Brunson as a star in the NBA, especially after he's going to likely have to go up head-to-head against the scoring backcourt of Cleveland. So at least as it seems right now with the seeding. And, he's been awesome all year. He's 7 more points per game than last year. He's shooting 41% from 3. I mean, it is like, I think we kind of rolled our eyes. Some people may have rolled their eyes when it's like, New York finally got their star, but like, no, they actually did. Like it was a signing that people were, I think, mocking a little bit that turned out to be a really good deal for the Knicks.
I thought it was an overpay, but
I did too.
It's becoming like a value contract. Like now it's becoming like he's
played into it. So yeah. I view them close to Cleveland, but not in the same stratosphere because ultimately, like Mitchell Robinson is a good player. I don't think he's better than Jared Allen or any of the centers above him. Same goes. Julius Randle's a very good player as well. I don't know if he can be the B player on a championship or even a deep run type.
I don't know. The Cavs are just, you want to bring in the matchups of it. The Cavs are just deeper, but you look at the top, like who the Cavs 2 best?
What do you mean? Like
two best players, D. Mitch and Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
The Knicks 2 best are Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. That's not that far of a drop off.
But here's again,
the average of them both may be equal.
This is the great unequalizer, we'll call it, of the NBA is defense, because there's no real great way to quantify it, unfortunately, as we've talked at length about during the MVP.
Neither of those two on the Knicks specialize on the defense.
But Mitchell Robinson's a good defender.
And Mitchell Robinson is, but so is Jared Allen, equal if not better. And I'm telling you, Mobley is really a next level defender.
And that's where we go. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's not going to be known for his defense, but he's known.
Right. He's a wash too, in my opinion.
Yeah, but we'll see. But the Knicks, we talked a lot about their strengths. Give me some of their weaknesses. Somebody.
Their weaknesses is that the talent gap is really they just have a massive talent gap compared to the contenders. There's no feasible scenario outside of injuries where they can win consecutive series. And they're just like a fun team. I'm happy that New York has a fun team to root for, that with real fans, I should say.
Right. You know what? I was about to say, I'm not that happy.
And it's just like that's their weakness. And not everything has to be about a title. They're bringing a lot of joy to Knicks fans who've seen horrible basketball for a long time. They know they're not going to win the title. It's the weakness is that they're just not good enough. It's not even like I don't even want to be mean, but I sound mean. They're just not nearly good enough to contend.
And I think if you tell the Knicks like you don't have a Giannis, they're gonna be like yeah, we know. Like you don't have a Jason Tatum. Like ooh, ouch. Like yeah, we know. Like it's not anything we don't know.
I had to let Matt go first there because I just simply wasn't going to cross myself immediately after saying Jalen Brunson is going to be a star, and then when you ask me the reason why they're not going to win is
someone put no superstar in the.
They don't have a true superstar.
I was going to politely skip over that.
That was it was me. Hand up. Hey, hand up. But I think both are true. I mean,
they have a star. You just saying.
And by the way, Jalen Brunson's going to jump to stardom. I've laid out before on this podcast. I view superstardom as a two-way. You need to be able to stop another superstar or another star to be.
He's not there on the defensive end.
And he's not. And I don't know if he ever will be. And I don't know if he ever has to be. He can still be a great player without it. You'll just need more to win a title. So that's how
he's not a liability on the defensive end. He's not.
He goes hard. He tries hard.
It's just not something that you could point out in his game. He also has really battled injury since the All-Star break, foot in hand. So I think if he's been healthy, you would have seen a couple more explosions like you did in the first half of the season that would have kept him in the forefront of stardom. But since then, he hasn't been part of these scoring outputs, so he's kind of been lackluster. I think New York's biggest strength is their biggest weakness. I think they do a bunch of things good. Well, they don't excel in any one thing. They excel in grit. And I love that. They excel in the only thing that we don't quantify here at Straight Facts is how much do you want it? That's the, you know what I mean? That's probably the only thing that on a night-to-night basis that their team is going to exert more than your team.
But like, not in the playoffs, because then everyone wants it the same.
True.
Yeah.
And we have yet to see what this level of grit translates in the playoffs to everybody else. But I think we'll see, like Josh Hart, we're going to have guys who just, you want to talk about like the incentive to win it. Like guys like Josh Hart's never played in a playoff series. Like a guy who plays with that much grit and intensity each game has never even been in the playoffs. Imagine when that happens in a game 6 or a game 7 in the Garden. Well, like he will be diving into the 5th row.
They're not going to make a game 6.
There's should be a distinction.
A lot of things,
they're done in 5 against Cleveland. I'm telling you. They win the fun game 3 in New York, and then they lose. That's the only game they win.
Maybe. We will see. Are we ready for this last team? Because that team really don't have to spend a lot of time on. They're really a formality because we said we were going to hit
tip of the hat.
Teams. And they're somehow above the Miami Heat for the 6th seed because the Heat are, folding on themselves right now. The Brooklyn Nets, 41-35, surviving the NBA's biggest soap opera and biggest drama of the season. Actually, tip of the cap to the Nets being 41-35.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like on the cusp of winning like 45 games amongst craziness that they have gone through this season is truly special. So we could talk about their strengths. I think their strengths is the fact that they're in the 6th seed and that their contender is the Miami Heat to battle for. That's their biggest strength, is the team they're battling for playoff or play-in position can't get it together to save their lives right now. But if you want to put stuff down on paper, because that's what we do at Straight Facts and quantify it, let's talk about some players on the rise. Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, Claxton has even taken a leap. But we'll start with Mikal, averaging nearly 10 more points on 5 more field goal attempts since just being in Brooklyn. Not even this year, but that's just the last 20 games. as Mikal has taken a historic and career-like leap. And that's, the Nets breed scores, right? KD, Kyrie, Cam Thomas, you're going to get your shots when you get to Brooklyn. He's making the most of it. But that's not the only thing that has been a strength of the Nets. They're in the 6th seed for a reason. So give me some other strengths of the Nets.
I think they really have nothing to lose, as we discussed. It's a bunch of guys who just got thrown onto a team.
Dinwiddie being back is a fun, heartwarming story.
And it's great. You know what? It's awesome. Bring the whole grassroots net movement back. And I don't say that sarcastically. That was a fun team. But this is going to be such an interesting basketball science experiment, because they have successfully completely overstocked themselves with plus role players who other teams would kill for in the playoffs. You talk about Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Royce O'Neal, Finney Smith, Cam Johnson, Dinwiddie. They truly are a deep team, and that's not even their stars or their younger players. Those are all the vets. So we're going to see what happens when you put guys who know how to make the right play, who know how to play hard, who don't have an ego in any sense, because they're all kind of role players. We're going to see what happens in the playoffs when they get matched up with another middling team.
Will Ben Simmons travel to the Philadelphia games to sit on the bench?
Ben Simmons is done playing NBA basketball.
But he's still on the team. He still sits on the bench.
Matt, you have to understand something. He's never putting on a uniform and lacing up his sneakers again.
He may not. No, he may not.
He's not.
They're trying to figure out a best option in the summer. But they may have to just buy him out and just really just cut all that.
Because if he's getting away with this, if they're just okay, go away, we'll pay you. Yeah, why is he ever saying my impinged back is fixed? I'm never saying that if I'm him. And
he doesn't have to. They just got bought out. Just gave him all his money. He can literally just go. He can just go and do whatever.
Yeah, so, also, I'm really thankful of Mikal Bridges, because I'm really glad. Hopefully, I'm not jinxing this, that we're not most likely going to play Miami in the first round, because Jimmy Butler plays like Michael Jordan when he plays against the Sixers. And that's going to be I still would be pretty confident we win, but Jimmy Butler's going to make me want to pull my hair out with how good he plays if that's the series. Yeah. So I'm really happy that Mikal Bridges has lifted the Nets above Miami for that 6th spot.
Quick weaknesses of the Nets, and we could go on a bevy of things, to be honest. But I think
their entire season fell apart.
Yeah, and Matt,
and they pieced it together with role players to make the playoffs.
Exactly. I think what I was gonna say is this is no structure, and that's not even like really their fault because they relied on 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA when healthy and putting it all together. And those 2 players, one of them really let them down.
All Kyrie does is blow up situation.
Yeah. One of them really let them down. The other one kind of had no choice but to go too. And their biggest strength again has become their biggest weakness. Jake, you talked about all their role players, just the crazy depth at wing. But then there's no who's got in what place. They could legitimately roll out a starting 5 of 6'6" to 6'9" wing players.
It's a science experiment, dude.
And it literally wouldn't be a stretch for them. Like that could literally be like a Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton lineup. That is legit their lineup.
It's like if you fed a AI a prompt on what is successful in the NBA, and it would be like, oh, 3-and-D is important. Give me every 3-and-D player that is available in the NBA, and that would be your roster.
The Hawks were trying to. The Hawks are so jealous of what the Nets are doing right now. The Hawks are so jealous. They wanted to do this so badly, but that I mean, and here's the thing: the reason why we don't have to spend too much time talking about the Nets, because I'm not sure the Nets are they're a real team. Let me not say it like that, but the Nets aren't a real contender. They're not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even sure they expected to be the 6th seed.
They may not end up the 6th seed too, depending.
They may not.
I mean,
but if the playoffs started today, they'd be out. I don't even know if they expected when it all blew up. I don't know if they really expected to be in the higher part of the plan. They may have said like by default we may get the 9 or 10 seed, but did they expect to be contending for the 6th seed when it was all said and done at the end of the regular season?
Remember,
you think so?
They don't have their first round picks, so they don't care. They're just
Whose
they have
first round picks do they have?
Ours, the Sixers.
No, they have the Sixers. They have some Phoenix. They have some Mavs. Like I don't like
Mavs.
All over the place.
All late picks. Good job.
Well, except the Mavs. Well, I guess not the Mavs. The Mavs. They're huge Mavs fans right now.
Right. Yeah, the Mavs might be depending on that.
Imploding. Yeah. But no. To that point, like they're all house money.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All house money over there. All right, so something that we were supposed to do from the start that I kind of blew through by accident and we'll do to end the podcast is each team has a team MVP. And we know the obvious ones, right? We know that Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Jason Tatum exist. But each team has either an unsung hero or an MVP besides them who's been like to me, I described it as they wouldn't be here without this person. That's how I kind of worded it. So if you believe that person is the obvious person for this team, you can name them. But we'll start from 1 and go through 6 real quick. Give 1 sentence of who you think the MVP of the team is. So we'll start with the Bucks. Jake, you can start. Who's your MVP of the Bucks?
I'm gonna go Brook Lopez because of what he's doing at the age that he's doing it at. 14 years in the NBA, leading the Defensive Player of the Year race, leading the NBA in blocks, the oldest player to ever do it. Matt, you said he could be an MVP or a future Hall of Famer. He is, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer. If I had
a vote, about Drew Holiday, but
he was talking about Drew Holiday, but Brook is sliding in the same type mold. Jake, you know I'm here for it.
Yeah.
You remember when I was Brook Lopez's like biggest campaign?
Well, when he started shooting threes, it was like, wow, he added this to his game.
It was the greatest. It was the greatest thing I'd ever.
Oh, hey, by the way, you should be the best defender in the league too. Why don't you just add that?
Overnight, he's doing the defensive thing almost like he did the 3-point thing, where literally one summer he came back and like Brook Lopez not only shoots threes, he's shooting like 7 a game, and he's shooting them at like 38%. Like, what is going on?
It helps when usually Giannis is on the shoulder of whoever's driving, and you're
It don't matter.
Drew Holiday is my MVP. He's just been fantastic for them.
Yep. Drew Holiday was mine too. I think Drew Holiday has made us not forget, but has made us okay with the fact that Chris Middleton has not been able to get healthy all season. Like if Drew Holiday wasn't playing at the crazy level that he's playing, he solidified the all-star bid that everyone thought that he didn't deserve in spite of James Harden. He's kind of shutting us all up for that. And he's filling that void of that second star that Giannis needs, that pressure that Giannis needs taken off of him. Drew Holiday is doing that and more. If he didn't step up again, Jake, at the age he's doing it, the Bucks wouldn't be where they are, man. Don't forget, man, this team won 23 or 25 games at one point. Like, they were on just a nasty, nasty historical.
They're on 40 at halftime with three-quarter.
They're currently down 40 to this team.
Yeah.
The Boston Celtics.
Marcus Smart.
Give me
Marcus Smart. It's all the little things. It's Marcus Smart.
I actually didn't have a good answer. I wasn't going to go Marcus Smart just because I don't think he's important enough in terms of if you took him off the team and put like Matisse Thybulle, they'd be the same or a similar player.
Hello.
I'm gonna be Puma fan like that. I don't know if I could do this. I'm gonna be boring and generic. It's Jason Tatum only because I think that he has added to what he brought last year in the sense that higher volume, higher everything else, and he's the leader of the team from what it seems. So
there's some of them that are the obvious one. This one I'm gonna go Jaylen Brown. Because every Batman needs a Robin, every number one needs a number two. And amongst all the kind of the weird vibes that have been going on, I think one of you guys mentioned that Jaylen Brown, you can't really see it in his game. Jaylen Brown is still kind of playing at that all-star, still playing at that all-star, all-NBA type of level. And he's the 1B to Jason Tatum's 1A, and at sometimes probably thinks he's the 1A, which is maybe the cause of some of this turmoil that's going on. But they're not where they are without Jason or without Jaylen Brown. Philly, man, who y'all unsung hero? Who y'all MVP?
Well, the thing with Philly is that we're so top heavy. But if I can't pick Embiid, I really think Harden. The fact that we're 9-5 without Embiid, a lot of that's because Harden's efficiency is way better than it was last year. All his percentages are up, and he's been almost exactly what I could have hoped for. He's not quite the scorer as he was before his hamstring injury in Brooklyn, but he's like 90% there. Harden.
Yeah, I am going to. Obviously, it's Embiid. He should run for mayor. He would win. But James, I know that you had this down, so I'll let you explain maybe why. But Tyrese Maxey and the maturity that he's shown, to me, I don't know if the Sixers would be as dominant or as dangerous of a team without him.
He solidified the third star for the Sixers, and I think they're not. I think we've seen duos are coming back in the league. I think teams are starting to win with duos ever since LeBron and AD was like the big duo in the bubble that won, and then you saw kind of Giannis and Chris Middleton were a big duo. I'm not sure Drew Holiday really consummates a big three, but Philly needed that big three. Like Tobias Harris was that third player for you guys, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's part of our big three." And now it's clearly Tyrese Maxey, and a lot of things can be attributed to this. But at one point, like all three of your big three had missed a month throughout the season, so each one of them have had to step up. But when Harden missed his month and Embiid missed his month, you saw Maxey step up in roles that like, man, this guy might be not only, a starter in the league, this guy might be a future star. And I think, that does a lot for the development and where the Sixers were going. And you talk about the maturity. He had to come off the bench for a month and a half when, well longer than he thought he should have to be coming off the bench. And he stuck with it and he played well. And it, still came in and was still giving y'all 25 to 30 off the bench, damn near 25 to 30. So I think, it's been great. He's been great. We'll move to the fourth team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Matt, give me your MVP for the Cavs.
I'm gonna go boring here, and Donovan Mitchell.
I was gonna say Donnie too. I was gonna go
and Mitchell gave them kind of like the North Star that everything else revolves.
Whoa! First timeout.
Points.
Great analogy. Great analogy. He's the North Star. I love that.
I'm gonna go with Mobley for the reasons that I laid out earlier. Because I think if you take him off the team, like obviously if you take Donovan Mitchell off the team, they don't have that big scoring engine. They're not going to be able to compete. But in the sense of when we call them the best team outside of the top three in the East, and that's in terms of the entire league, I guess, a top five team, Mobley's the one who gets them there. Besides Mitchell, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm going to go boring with you too, Matt, and say Donovan Mitchell because I'm not going to say everybody on this team is doing what they did last year. I'm going to say everyone on this team is progressing and playing to the level that everyone expected them to. I'm not sure anyone is like crazy above and beyond what we expected. Darius Garland was an all-star. We expect that. Evan Mobley is continuing to develop his all-around game. We expect that. So this team went from 7-8 seed last year at the end of the regular season to the 4 seed this year. And there's one thing that directly correlates to that. And the direct correlation is, you must have plugged in Donovan Mitchell. They move up 3 spots, right? That's kind of just an easy equation to happen. I'm not sure that it's like much deeper than that. But like we said, the potential for the Cavs is unknown. Like their ceiling is unknown. All right. These last two got to be quick. The Knicks, give me your unsung hero.
Brunson, Randall's inconsistency really cost them last year. Brunson being a consistent player has made them a playoff team again.
Give me, I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder again, I think. Give me Thibs. I'm going to say Thibs because of the culture that he's brought and finally brought winning basketball back to New York.
I was going to say everybody because of the Thibs culture, like the grit and grind, but I don't like that. You can't give, like, this isn't a participation trophy here. I'm not giving everybody the MVP award. So I'm going to go with Julius Randle, man, because, like, yes, he's been inconsistent, but the highs have been all NBA. And I think the inconsistency is his temper. If he gets his temper down pat, I think everything else is good. He just, be a little whiny baby sometimes, and it can affect the game. I'm not sure this matters, but the Brooklyn Nets, do they have him? Can we all just collectively say Mikal and move on to at the buzzer?
Yeah, I feel sorry for Seth Curry, but it's Mikal.
Yeah, sure. We can give Seth Curry the award just because I feel bad that he's still there. But like,
give Ben the award, man.
The Nets shouldn't be the 6th seed. It's not good for basketball because they're not. You know what I mean?
We'll see.
Failed experiment.
Maybe this is Mikal's.
Good for him, man. I hope he takes every shot in that series. All right. We're almost out of time for this episode of Straight Facts. A good one, a long one, but a good one. We apologize if you stuck out through this hour and 15, man. We appreciate y'all. As always, we can get some shots about the buzzer quickly. Jake, got a shot about the buzzer?
My biggest pet peeve, when you look at Greek mythology, whatever Sisyphus is a part of, the guy who pushes the rock up the hill only for it to have it fall back down. That struggle for me is it's seemingly any time. I really enjoy cooking. I do it a lot. And when Sarah's, not home, I'll cook only for myself. And that's when I'll really try something new. So I got salmon and cooked it away. I usually had never tried before. Came out really well. Made a pan sauce. It probably took me like 45 minutes to put this all together. And I played it all. It tastes great the first bite. And that's when I realized that my impatient ass, and this is what always befalls me, I can never wait I never remember to thaw the meat. And then I can never wait for it to thaw once I do remember. So it's like raw inside. And like
you said the first bite tastes, because it was the outside.
It's salmon. So it's like the thin part on and then it's like the meat in the middle. It was so effing undercooked. I was like,
you could have made yourself sick. Yeah, you could have made yourself sick.
Well, the good thing about salmon is like that's what they use in sushi and stuff. So I do like sushi. I ate some of it that probably most people wouldn't, only out of like pure spite. Like I made it, I have to eat it now. But every time there will be like one thing that I just completely mess up, and that's the process of cooking, man. That's the beauty of it.
Cooking is definitely a trial and error process, man. Yeah. It's okay.
For
your stomach's sake, I hope you get better at it.
Yeah.
I got to give a shout out to Jim Larinaga.
Go ahead.
I've liked Larinaga for a while. My brother went to George Mason, not when they made the Final Four, but when they beat Nova in the first round in 2011.
Oh, so yes, for him.
And that was like the fact that the accomplishment of taking 2 teams to their first ever Final Four, I think, is one of the more impressive accomplishments you can have as a college basketball coach, especially when one of those teams is George Mason.
Mm-hmm.
And George Mason has made the tournament once without Jim Larinaga. That's it, in 1989. And other than that, all their 6 tournament appearances, Larinaga. Final Four 06, obviously, beating Nova in 2011. And then going to Miami and making them a consistent contender in the ACC. Couple Elite Eights and the Final Four. I think we don't appreciate the non-top tier coaches enough, and I think like this solidifies a Hall of Fame spot for him, and I'm glad that like someone like him can get his love. A guy who never really got a shot to coach at a big school until he was like 65.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like the non-top tier coaches. If he's non-top tier, he right in the mix of the second tier coaches. Then, and you're right. Like this is Jim Laranaga's time. Like it would have been a crime if Jim Laranaga retired and didn't get a chance to he didn't go to a Final Four with like a top tier program or a Power 5 school. Like George Mason goes to the Final Four is like a cool story, but Miami goes to the Final Four with a shot to win the title, and that's like what Jim Laranaga like deserves. I think that's really cool. It's a great at the buzzer. Mine's two. First one's really quick. Shout out Caitlin Clark for winning Women's National Player of the Year for the NCAA. She's a great player. Had a tremendous season. Maddie Siegrist got snubbed. That's all I'm gonna say. As she finally leads the NCAA in scoring. Doesn't have a game under 20 points. So a 50-point game, multiple 40-point games, multiple 30-point games, whatever, man. I'm not gonna go through it too much. The fact that Maddie Siegrist leaves with no player of the year from college basketball to me is a little bit of a crime. Speaking of scoring, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. We talked about it a lot off camera. We don't have a whole lot of time, so I won't get into too much. It's time to reevaluate scoring in the NBA. It's time to look at it differently, because in this last week alone, I've had 40-point outputs from PJ Washington. Drew Holiday gave me 50 in 3/4, and Talen Horton-Tucker dropped 40 plus last night. That's not to mention the 40-point games that we've gotten. I'm about to pull up the list. I'm pulling up the list. That's not to mention the 40-point games we've gotten from Cam Thomas this season, from Larry Marketing this season. We've gotten 3 from Jalen Brunson. We've gotten 4 from Klay Thompson.
Quietly.
We've gotten 4 from Jalen Green. We've gotten 5 from DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. And they like
the DeMar one hurts.
Yeah. That's where it's like, we know he's not shooting threes to do it.
Time to reevaluate scoring. And that list didn't
how are the Bulls
include
doing with all those 40-point games from DeMar?
Their whole career. And that's this season.
Yeah.
That's not his career. That's this year. And that list didn't even include PJ Washington, Talen Horton-Tucker. So, Eric Drew Holiday, go ahead.
Oh, and Jason Tatum in the one of 2 games tonight. There's been 1 game played in the NBA tonight, and there was a 40-point score. Granted, Tatum's a good player, but it was probably in like 3/4. I think it was in 3/4.
But you can bank on a 40-point score every night.
Yeah.
Time to reevaluate scoring in the NBA. If PJ Washington can walk in and give you 40, it's time to reevaluate. If THT can walk in and give you 40, it's time to reevaluate it. Okay? I'm no longer going to get it. So 40 used to be hollow ground. It used to be among the best performances in the league 10 years ago. A guy drops 40 and you're still talking about it. A guy drops 40 in November, you're still talking about it in March. A guy drops 40 on Saturday this year, and I'm not talking about it on Tuesday because I probably had 3 more 40-point performances. So it's really time to redo it. I'm not going to be surprised.
I think the Sixers might have gone like 8 years without a 40-point player, like post Iverson.
Wow.
Maybe like Drew Holiday got 40 at one point.
Hey, you know what we call that, Matt? We call that the process. That's what
No. This was like the 80 years.
If you don't have
80 years, I don't think anyone got 40 either.
No, it's truly just it's just time, because think about it. You're going to have to come at me with something different than I scored 50 points.
Well, now you got D-Mitch saying I scored 70.
That is going to have. That's what's going to impress me.
And that's barely.
You have to do it
been desensitized.
Because you can't. No, seriously, because you can't come to me and be like, "Oh, I scored 40." I'd be like, "Ooh, Taylor Horton-Tucker did it." You know what? What else did you do? "Ooh, I dropped 50." Okay, Sadiq Bey did that. What else? What else did you do? Like it has to yield to like wins now. It has to something tangible has to become of it, because like. I dropped 45. Cool. PJ Washington did that.
Yeah, and that is the door closed on it. Yeah.
You know
PJ
what I mean?
Washington.
Like I can't. I can't. I just it won't impress me nowadays. So that's all the time we have for this episode of Straight Facts. It was a really good one. Shout out to everyone in the Up On Game Presents Network: LeVar Arrington, Plexico Burst, TJ Hushmanzada. They do a great job. Make sure you're going, following, liking, and subscribing to Up On Game Presents wherever you get your podcast. So shout out to those guys and shout out to my guys, Jake Galley and Stat Matt Robinson. I'm James Jackson. These have been the facts.
Straight up.